When it comes to Montreal Canadiens in the past who have been 5'7", there are a few names that stand out as being pretty gosh darn good. Henri Richard, for example, was 5'7". He is one of the most decorated NHL players of all time with the most Stanley Cups as a player in history. You have Cole Caulfield this year, who is a 5'7" dynamo on the team already. He is looking to becoming a lot better as his career goes on. Furthermore, there is a prospect that I wanted to talk about in this video today that's actually giving us more fuel to discuss his profile and who also happens to be 5'7". Now, this guy's name has popped up here and there in a few prior prospect discussions, but whenever he is mentioned, there are a few things that are always assumed about this guy that I wanted to go out there and try to dispute in this video in particular. So, today we're going over a late-round Montreal Canadiens pick from the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, 6th round, 191st overall. It is Xavier Simoneau. Now, we have made a few videos about Simoneau in the past, but the reason we're talking about him today again is because I guess sometime over the past week, we had ourselves some more conversations popping up on Twitter about this player and why he actually should be considered a lot more legit than the average NHL fan might consider him to be. So, let's go over the profile, talk about what makes Simoneau so great, and go over some of the tweets that I wanted to bring to you here in this video. Xavier Simoneau is a 2021 draftee, born in May of 2001, meaning that he was, a double overager when he was selected in the 2021 draft? He's 21 years old, happens to be 5'7", 179, is a left-handed center, and he's currently unsigned by the team. Because he was born in May of 2001, he was eligible for the 2019 NHL Entry Draft, and in this season's worth of play, he actually was a pretty good player, being over a point per game in the QMJHL with the Drummondville Voltigeurs. Now, even though he was over a point per game, he went undrafted, because he's only 5'7", and he's a point per game in the QMJHL, which isn't really the strongest league out there in comparison to the WHL and the OHL, so he got passed up in the draft once. The season after, he got passed up again, despite the fact that as the captain of the Voltigeurs, he had 89 points in 61 games on that season. He was an assist-per-game player. The year after, in 2020-2021, in a shortened QMJHL season, he put up 37 points in 27 games played, and 3 points in 3 games in the postseason, wherein the Canadiens were like, yeah, okay, let's take this guy, we had seen enough of him, and we like what we see to take him as a double overager, which is what they did in the 6th round. The year after, though, Xavier Simoneau had himself a pretty good year as a Charlottetown Islander instead. In 48 games played, he had 24 goals, 62 assists for 86 total points on the year. He also had 21 points in 14 games in the playoffs. Now, he's going to be suiting up in the Laval Rocket system for 2022-2023, most likely, and Simoneau has shown off extraordinarily well throughout the latter parts of his QMJHL days. But hey, Lego, what are you talking about? This guy is a double, triple overager player in the QMJHL. He's supposed to go out there and dominate the league in the way that he did. Sure, 86 points in 48 games is impressive, but the guy's 21 years old. What more do you expect out of a guy who is this old, still playing in the Q? This is what the Elite Prospects Draft Guide says about Simoneau from 2020. He easily recognizes coverage assignments and contains bigger opportunities on the D side. Simoneau can feather passes with both forehand and backhand just as proficiently. His speed improves with the usage of multiple crossovers. He's a high-energy forechecker, although he finishes hits that he sometimes doesn't need to. He should look to use his stick more. And so, even though this is a player that has a high motor, he's got a pretty good work ethic, he's smart on the D side, he can pass, he can play make, he can do things on the forehand and the backhand, and even though he is a player that put up however many points he did, 86 points in 48 games played, we should go out there and discredit this guy because he's 21 years old and he's only 5'7", right? Well, let's go over on Mitch Brown's Twitter account. What Mitch is a hockey analyst for EP Rinkside, and he is the director of North American Scouting at Elite Prospects. This is what he posted about Xavier Simoneau earlier this week. Overagers should post strong results, but Simoneau suggests he should be a great pro off the hop. Look at the track record right here. He's posted top 10 playmaking results and 85th percentile and up defensive results in each of the 4 seasons I have tracked him. Attached is a little graph of Simoneau and his tracked data from this previous year. I mean, the guy had a 98th percentile ranking of wins above replacement metric there. He was a top 95 percentile, or excuse me, top 5% in defense, top 12% in offense, and in transition, he was a top 3% player as well. His primary assists per 60 minutes, his slot passes per 60 were all great. His controlled transition entry relative percentage and his entries per 60, it was all great. His miscellaneous stats were good too. He had really good advanced analytics, and what Mitch is saying here is that, hey, even though he is an overager, he's been a pretty good advanced analytical player the past 4 years, even though he had been drafted just last year. Here's the follow-up tweet from Mitch Brown, his transition passing. Simoneau uses lateral passes and give-and-goes instead of relying on handling and speed advantages that won't carry to the next level. It's a common issue for CHLers. 3. Here is his board play and playmaking. He's a top 10 player at taking pucks from the board to the inside lane under pressure. He avoids the battle entirely by scanning pre-touch and then finding the open teammate. If not, he gets low, absorbs contact, and then spins away from pressure and attacks the inside. Attached is a video clip. Here are some other tweets going out there and believing in Simoneau. Here's Thibaut Chatel, who quote-tweeted the Mitch Brown thread from earlier. What Thibaut did was he went out there and screenshotted what I believe is an assessment tool of QMJHL talent, and it pretty much says that Simoneau was 33rd in their model in 2019. He was picked by Montreal in 2021, and he was 3rd in this season's worth of play in points per game in the Q, so there are advanced analytical models that had Simoneau as a good player as far back as 2019 when he was initially draft eligible. You had Hattie K, who went out there, they work for Habs Eyes on the Prize. They said Simoneau was going to be an NHL player. I'm calling it right now, and he's going to be a fan favorite. Take a look at this, somebody replies, David Desharnais vibes. Hattie says, Desharnais had trouble fending off physical pressure along the boards. I'd say that's Simoneau's main strength, along with his playmaking, so the ceiling is higher in my opinion. Do you think that Simoneau will play in the Habs, though? Especially with them likely missing a center in next year's draft and already having Suzuki, Dach, Mishak, and Beck? Simoneau can very comfortably play both wings, so I'm not really too concerned. He's eventually going to force himself into the lineup in some capacity. And so at the end of the day, even though the Montreal Canadiens drafted a guy who is technically a double overager when he was drafted last year, and who was only 5'7", scoring at a high point rate in the QMJHL, which is not really the most talented of junior leagues out there, you have yourselves a prospect profile in Simoneau that actually is good enough to justify maybe pegging him in as a potential NHL talent sometime down the line. Now, if he doesn't make it, that's fine. He's a 6th-round pick for crying out loud, taken 2 years after he was initially draft eligible. So there isn't really anything the Canadiens are losing here if Simoneau doesn't end up making the show one day. But what have I been saying this entire time? All you need, as a GM of a hockey team, is one of these picks to go right. One Lane Hudson, or one Simoneau, or one Miguel Tournier, one of these guys to make the NHL one day, and you look like a genius because of it. And so, with Xavier Simoneau heading over to the Laval Rocket next season, there are projected models saying that this guy probably should be able to do well in the AHL, despite the fact that he's already 21 years old and only starting his pro career now. That bodes very well for a guy that actually has had a good statistical profile the past 4 years, even though he had only gotten drafted last year. Sure, he's 5'7", sure, he's pretty old, but at the end of the day, Simoneau is a fantastic playmaker, a grinder along the boards that can win puck battles and facilitate play offensively for his team. And heading into next season, I'm really excited to see what he's able to do with the Laval Rocket. So, if any Drummondville fans and Quebec are out there and you want to talk to me in the comments about Simoneau and what it is that he does well out there on the ice, anybody from Charlottetown who watched the Islanders and saw what he did with your squad as well, what are your thoughts about this guy? What did you think about him in the previous QMJHL seasons that he had? I mean, the guy had 86 points in 48 games. That's crazy. And it's even more crazier when you understand that this isn't really just a guy who exploded in the last year's worth of QMJHL play because he's older. Nah, he was good the entire time. So talk to the comments, your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.